Okay, today is a highly anticipated review on the Freak Athlete Hyper Pro. This is their newer version of the older version where they've taken a lot of things, both that we've critiqued and I think the community, and upgraded it. I will say this for a home gym may be a new essential. Hey guys, this is Coop, from Garage Gym Reviews. Today we are reviewing the Freak Athlete Hyper Pro. I want to say Nordic Hyper Pro, but the Hyper Pro. This is a 9-in-1 machine, 9 different movements. Some of them are better, others are worse. I'm actually gonna rake the movements and what I think about them in a tier system here in a moment. I'm gonna walk through the full quality. I'm gonna compare it to the old unit, also to individual units and units that are out there from like Tib Bar Guy, Base Blocks, Shogun Nordex, and others that we've used, compared, reviewed as a comparison to this one. Okay, I wanna start by saying the concept. I wanna just review the concept. In concept is a home gym dream piece. It is. The amount of space that this takes up with the amount of potential machines that it can replace is incredible. It's amazing. Like if you're starting a home gym, this idea of having a Nordic curl, a back extension, reverse hyper, decline sit-up, hip thrust that also works for Bulgarian split squats, leg extension, prone leg curl, just the amount of things that are on this. Oh, did I forget? A GHD/GHR. There's so much that this thing can do in such a small footprint. This is the thing, a lot of companies aren't designing things for home gyms. A lot of times when they're designing stuff, they design them for like a commercial gym setting or something, and then it like filters down. Freak Athlete is designing things specifically for a home gym setting, and they're doing it with like unique engineering. Now I'm gonna talk about the quality and how it relates to the engineering, but the concept of what this can do, I am a huge fan of. So great job just on the idea of this, Freak Athlete. We'll get into like actually what I think about how it actually performs. Now, another thing before I get into like the actual movements, you gotta recognize, and I'm sure everybody does, but I think it's worth saying, whenever you combine things that are individual into one unit, you typically have to compromise on some stuff. Also, this is made for a home gym and to hit a sub $1,000 price point. This is designed to be more of a budget-ended piece of equipment. Whenever you're doing that, you have to make compromises. So there are compromises that I'll talk through that they made. Were they the right compromises? We'll find out, but just understand, a standalone unit in almost every case are going to be overall better. But there's so much more that this thing can do and how little space it takes up, and also the price. Like a standalone unit, you think of like a GHD from like the Rogue Abram 2.0, one of the best GHDs of all time. It's gonna cost more than just this thing alone. So it's like, you compare those, it's like, whoa, the value on this can be crazy. So let's start with the movements. I'm gonna start with Nordics. I'm gonna start at the top. These are my S tier movements. These are the things that I think this thing does best. Okay, I love Nordics. I've talked about this ad nauseum. You guys are probably tired of it. I can do a Nordic. Actually, when I go to parties, first thing I tell people is, yeah, my name's Cooper Mitchell, I can do Nordics. It's a very important thing for me. I actually have a tag that says Cooper, Nordic Doer. It's pretty cool. But Nordics are an amazing movement. This actually, Freak Athlete kind of spawned out of, I would say, more of the knees over toes guy type training, and a lot of people that do that type of training view this as kind of like a centerpiece for their home gym because it can really bulletproof your knees. One thing that I think makes this S tier and actually better than most or maybe all Nordic pieces on the market is the ability to go from an extreme decline. So somebody that can do a decline Nordic is an absolute beast. Actually, their founder, Benji, he can do a decline Nordic. That is amazing. Like, that is incredible. The amount of strength that you need to be able to do that is ridiculous, but that's cool. But most people will never even get to close to needing that. It's the incline feature. And the reason that this is actually a better incline Nordic than most others that you would use to progressively overload Nordics is because the full pad adjusts. So here's an instance. One of my favorite Nordic curl machines and back extension is the Shogun Nord X. It's one that I have at my house. I love that thing. I still love it. But if you're learning to do Nordics, that's actually an inferior way to do it because it uses a pad that doesn't allow you to get to full ROM. This one inclines fully, so you can still get to full ROM, but it's an easier strength curve because you're adjusted. This is superior in just about every way from the actual movement perspective to learn to do Nordics as just about any Nordic that's out there. There are other companies that have taken this idea like Base Blocks. They've got something similar. I believe Tib Bar Guy actually has something similar too, but those don't do nearly as much as this one does. The ability to actually go from not doing any Nordics on an incline to doing a full Nordic, this is actually the best way to do that. So if you're looking to do Nordics and you want to do that, honestly, this machine and the price, just for that feature, I think is almost worth doing. Like it's just like, it's that good on Nordics. But just to like give you some more info on that, it's got 14 different levels of adjustments for Nordics. That's all the way from decline to incline. So you can basically dial it in. Again, for progressive overload, you should think of those as basically a weight stack. You've got 14 different weights stack that you can adjust all the way up and down depending on how strong you are. Now, another reason I would say this is actually better than the old one are the new rollers. They're XL rollers. They're very big. The back rollers, the ones on the bottom, actually roll. The top one doesn't. I don't know if you'd actually want that top one. Just the way it's secured, it doesn't really make sense to roll it. But they're big, oversized, nice foam, and okay vinyl. I'll talk through some of that quality and some of the things I think they could improve, like in an upgraded version. But I will say the rollers just feel very comfortable, and the back kick plate so you can kick your toes feels great during Nordics. Okay, then to back extension. Back extension, I would say, is a B tier. The back extension is actually really good. There's a few reasons that I put it as a B tier. I mean, it could probably float an A tier. It's actually really well done. I just don't think it's as good as the Nordics or as good as a standalone back extension, where like the Nordic is actually, I think, better than most standalone Nordic boards. The reason the back extension I just don't give like S tier is the way that it's designed to do all the other stuff. You don't have a crazy amount of headroom basically beneath you. A lot of people are using a back extension weighted for the glutes and hamstrings. It's actually a killer movement if you've never done it. If you don't have like a big, tall back extension, like if you're looking for a standalone, which is like superior to this in every way, but also like probably 10 times the cost, takes up a ton of space, only does one thing, would be like the Atlantis 45-degree back extension. Incredible piece, lifts you way off the ground. The benefit to that is you can use a bar to do it. Because there's basically an adjuster bar on this that gets in the way, you really have to use like dumbbells or kettlebells, which is fine, or you can kind of zercher it. But just understand, like the back extension is good. It's just not as good as a standalone piece, but it gets the job done. It can go all the way up to 45 degrees, feels very comfortable when it's there. The padding feels very comfortable. There's extra handles you can use like you would on a standard back extension. The foot rollers feel great when you're in them. Just all around, back extension is pretty good. But if you're like, depending on how big or how tall or short you are, this works for a wide range of body types. 12 different height positions on the actual pad that stays, and then 10 different levels of incline. So you can basically just dial it in however you want. Again, another way that you could progressively overload outside of weight. Something else that they've added on this that wasn't on the previous one is actually an adjustable thigh pad, so it can adjust out or in. Sorinex has something similar as this on their Frankenhyper that I used to have. They call it the Man Canyon pad. I freaking love that name, it's great. But it basically is a pad that takes off. This is actually superior because there's nothing you have to take off. You just kind of adjust it out or in. Feels very comfortable. You can put it in when you want to do other movements and not have the canyon there, or when you want to just protect the men's vital areas, you just pull it out. Very nice. Okay, then GHD. GHD I'd say is like B tier. It's good, very similar to the back extension. Very good, works very well. The GHD pad is vastly superior to the old one. The old one was a smaller pad and used Velcro to wrap around. This one actually attaches to the main frame, which is very nice. Again, like I'll talk about some kind of the adjustments here in a little bit, but attaching to the frame allows it to be very stable. Use the same pop pin as all their other stuff. You tighten it down. It's very secure. It's oversized. It's thick foam. It's also a split pad, so it feels good, similar to like the back extension. So whenever you're doing GHRs, if you'd like to, which you can do no problem, you can also do GHD sit-ups on this, which I know a ton of CrossFit athletes absolutely love. Actually, I like GHD sit-ups a lot, probably one of my favorite ways because you just get a major stretch across the abs. I actually like the GHD pretty well. It's not gonna be as good, like I said, as a standalone, but it's honestly not that far off. The height is really well done. It does have actually foldable magnetic foot pegs that are knurled. Again, thank you, Benji. I love the little knurling details and the magnets so they stay out of the way. There's just some thoughtful features on this for a price point that really is more budget ended, and it just like adds up to a pretty cool product. Then to hip thrust, I really like the hip thrust. I won't say, like, I'd put it as like a B tier. It's not gonna be as good because it's basically just a Bulgarian split squat. It's a leg roller. Think of like a leg roller you'd have on a rack. The difference is you have freedom of movement on either side. So you can use it without anything in your way like you would a leg roller on the rack. So you can use it with barbell hip thrusts or dumbbells. Also, probably the way that I would use it most is actually for Bulgarian split squats. I actually have a standalone Sorinex Bulgarian split squat roller that is just ridiculously expensive. All it does is split squats. This can do the same thing. I mean, very, very cool feature. You're gonna have to maneuver the thing. It's got wheels on the back. So you're gonna have to maneuver it to where you're using a barbell if you're using a rack or something. But I like that. It's just something simple that they added. Didn't cost them a lot. Not gonna cost you a lot to add, but does add a lot of versatility to your training without taking up any more space. Freaking love it. Okay, then to the sit-up. I'd say sit-up is like C tier. When I'm doing sit-ups, I wanna do like a very aggressive angle on the sit-up. This doesn't get quite as aggressive as what you get from like the Ironmaster Pro Bench, which is where I'm typically doing sit-ups, but it works. Honestly, you have the option to do decline sit-ups. You could also use it if you wanted to with dumbbells in some way for like decline press. You could also just do GHD sit-ups, what I think would be superior in many ways to just a standard decline sit-up, but it doesn't, so it's nice to have. Then I think my least favorite, and I'd say like a D tier, is the reverse hyper. Not because it's not good, not because it doesn't do anything, but because it's unweighted. They have the ability to use bands on it. Resistance bands on reverse hyper, and this feeling just feels okay. It does do like the movement for reverse hypers. And if you're just looking for something unweighted to do reverse hypers, this thing's just fine. Technically, you probably add monkey feet, and you could probably do it that way too. But when I think of a reverse hyper, I think of the Louis Simmons West Side reverse hyper. And so I don't think this is necessarily a replacement for a typical reverse hyper. I do think it's good enough that they could say it does reverse hyper type movements. So just understand that. Just know, like, if you're wanting a reverse hyper, like this isn't gonna replace like a Rogue Scout or a Rogue typical reverse hyper. It's just not gonna have the weight loaded. But Sam, for instance, who has a very curved back, actually looks like an S if you look from the backside. He's always trying to basically straighten out his back, and he actually has the old version, and he says he uses it more than any other piece of equipment, which I think is a lie, but that's what he said. Then to two of the newest features that are kind of like an add-on. There's actually three, but two of them I think are really good. One I think is actually one of the best features of this entire thing, and that is basically their leg developer attachment. It's a leg extension, leg curl attachment that for leg extensions, it is as good or better than just about every home gym marketed leg extension that's plate loaded. Like it is. The angle of the weight horn, they just got it perfect. The resistance curve is very consistent all throughout the range of motion. You get a very nice stretch. Also, because there's no back pad behind you, you can lean back very far. So you just get that open hip angle, which has been shown to basically just develop the rectus femoris than just about any other way that you do leg extensions. Oftentimes, a lot of people will do them like this. Now you want to open that hip angle, learn that from Mike Israetel. He talks about it all the time. But this allows you to do that really well. The horn on the front, like you can load up quite a bit of weight on it. It's comfortable. I actually really like the piece. It's a little bit annoying to adjust and put on there, but that's just the name of the game with this, is like you just gotta like figure out how to do it and understand that you're gonna move things on and off. But personally, I would definitely add the leg developer just for the leg extension. The prone leg curl is good. You get a good stretch. I don't think it's as good as the leg extension. The leg extension I'd say is like A or S tier for this piece. The leg curl I'd say is more B tier, but you have a leg curl and like you get a good stretch. The resistance curve is also pretty even throughout. I think it works. It's a good add-on that I think is really good. Another way they're marketing this though, and this is like the 9th thing, it's the upper body straps. So if you want to pay 30 bucks, you get an upper body strap. They have an eyelet that attaches to the leg developer attachment. It's okay. like, you just gotta understand you're not replacing a functional trainer. I don't think they're necessarily marketing that way either. You can do rows, you can do arm curls, you can do some of that stuff, and it uses basically the weight attachment. I think it's nice that they added it. Honestly, it'd be kind of cool if they just added the straps. Like, the straps are cheap. It's just another thing to add on. Like, personally, I think it's just an okay attachment. I wouldn't buy it for that, but I will say, if you just have like one piece, you don't have a ton of space, the ability basically to have some sort of cable unit, like when I was starting my garage gym back in the day, if this piece was out here, oh my goodness, and the ability to like use cable handles, I would have been all over it. All right, so then to some of the like quality and stability stuff. Quality, it's what you'd expect for the price. Like, quality is okay. The powder coat is pretty they're using quite a bit of thin metal. Like, the weight capacity, it's pretty good. The padding is better than the old one, as is the vinyl, but it's still not good vinyl. They switched from a very grippy vinyl that would basically tear or pull your hair. This one does not, but it's still just okay. I'm comparing this in some regard to other more expensive units and like really good vinyl and padding that we see from like Rep Fitness and other companies. This is not priced in that realm for all it can do, so I'm actually fine with the quality. I will say, I'd love to see, and I said this on the last time we reviewed this, I would love to see a true pro version of this. Like, with all this can do, a true pro version with, like, instead of plastic knobs, like knurled aluminum knobs, really nice padding, because this is a more budget piece, but there's a lot of home gym owners that don't have a small budget. They just have a small space, but they want really high quality stuff. It's one reason I like the Shogun Nord X. If they could make this at the same quality as the Shogun Nord X, this thing would be incredible. But for the price, the quality I think is in line. Once you get this dialed into the positions, it is very stable. Much more than you'd expect from a 9-in-1 piece. Like, once you dial it in, tighten the knobs, you know what you're doing. Some of the attachments, the way they attach, like say the leg extension, there's some very smart engineering that's gone into this. The stability is actually really well done. So, A+. All right, all that said, what I think about it, you can probably figure it out by now. If I was starting a home gym and I bought a rack, I bought a bar and plates, I bought a bench, I bought some adjustable dumbbells, this would maybe be my next purchase. Either this or a functional trainer, something like that. Because there's just so much you can do with this. It's definitely lower body focused, but like, you really don't have to buy any other lower body stuff. Like, the amount of lower body training you could do with this is amazing. And for the price, 750 bucks. If you want to add the leg developer, I definitely add it. It's another 250 bucks. You can add the GHD hyper pad. I feel like they should just add that. Well, I could understand why that adds up. Basically, you're looking around 1,000 bucks to do a ton of different stuff. Big fan. So I foresee these going in more and more home gyms. This is definitely an upgrade to the older version. There's still some things I'd like to see, like a true pro version I'd love to see, but the cost, the value, the movements, it's freaking awesome. It's that good. Now, there's another thing I just want to say. One is the stand-up feature. It now has a stand-up feature. So they listen to us and the community. Basically, they have this spring-loaded piece on the back that folds out and springs in. And so it's just always down. You just pull it up and then it can stand up for storage. So it already takes up hardly any space, but it takes up even less space, similar to like an adjustable bench, where you can just put it in a corner, get it out of the way, fold down the leg, and you're good to go. If you're going to get this, you just have to understand, don't get frustrated at the beginning. It does so much. You're gonna have to figure out, like, everything adjusts. There's so many freaking knobs. I do think that Freak Athlete could do a better job of having a guide, like a physical guide. Actually, like, if you look at commercial pieces, oftentimes they'll have a guide on the piece to show you how to use it. If it's so complicated that you can't even create a guide for, sometimes it's like, you gotta figure that out. So being able to have something that is very helpful, easy to see, not a video, like they have some QR codes on the back that you can go, but then you go to them and it's just watching videos. I don't wanna watch a video I just want something that says, pull this knob, move it to this number, then you get that. They did color them. I just think there could be easier ways for them to instruct people on how to adjust it. Okay, let me know what you think of it. If you have the old one, I'd love to hear, like, what are you doing with it? Do you really like it? Do you get tired of all the changing and everything like that? It's one of the biggest annoyances, is just figuring it out over time. They did add the colored knobs, which they actually added to the older one, but over time you get used to it more and more, and it just gets to a point where you're probably just going in and getting it done. Okay, let me know in the comments. This has been Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. I'll see you next time. Peace.